Bringing people and communities together on seclosounds.org.
Your listening station.
Travel insurance, British Virgin Islands, and why do we still need travel agents? That's all coming up on the Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. Hello and welcome to the Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. Later in the show I'll be speaking to Ginny from the British Virgin Islands tourist office in London, and also Nick, who's from a travel agent in South London, to find out why we still need to use travel agents. I'm assuming that most of you go online to book your travel, but there are times when the travel agents will not only get you a better deal, they make sure you get the right holiday in the first place, so Nick will be telling us about that. But first, travel insurance. Perhaps some of you don't worry with travel insurance, or maybe you use your bank account to cover you. I went on a animal sanctuary a couple of years ago. I called up my bank account and asked if the travel insurance covered me. They said yes. I said, I'm working with lions and leopards and cheetahs, are you sure? They said yes. So can you just check for me? I said okay. They came back, no, I'm not covered. So I had to see a specialist to get travel insurance to cover me, which wasn't easy, but we managed it, and it wasn't that expensive. A lot cheaper than it would have been if I hadn't had the cover and then had to be flown back to hospital because one of the leopards have attacked me, for instance. I know that's an extreme case, but even when you go over to a fly and flop holiday in the Spanish costas, you do need to make sure you're protected, especially when some countries don't give you free medical cover and you have to pay. So to find out more about travel insurance, I spoke to Louise from Holiday Extras, who have a very good insurance for those who have pre-existing conditions. Talking of pre-existing conditions, when I had travel insurance, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, way before I was in the travel trade, I was being treated with depression at the time. No, I'm not going to be going on about that. It's just an example. And I had to make a declaration in a busy travel agents that I would not throw myself off the top of a building. And if I did, I'd realise that I wasn't covered for suicide because I'm being treated for depression. Very embarrassing. I can look back at it now and laugh, but it was a horrible way of doing things. But things have changed now. The insurance companies are far more friendly. And of course, you don't have to do it in a travel agent anymore. You can do it online. And if you have a medical pre-existing condition, you can do it over the phone in the privacy of your own home. But anyway, here's Louise from Holiday Extras to tell us more.
Right, Louise, why do we need travel insurance?
Okay, so travel insurance is one of those things that you pay for, but you might never use. So similar to sort of purchasing house insurance. Obviously, the hope is that you're never going to need to use it, but it is a big risk. So it's really there to protect you primarily against medical conditions and expenses that you may have to pay for. It costs thousands if you have to be repatriated, that kind of thing. But it covers so much more, just claiming money back in the event of having to cancel your holiday, or if you're unfortunate to be robbed whilst abroad, you can claim for personal possessions. And we even cover things like pet care for extra kennel or cattery costs if you're delayed on your return journey.
Oh, extra cattery and kennel costs.
Yeah.
It's been handy for my brother because his flight got delayed a couple of weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah.
It's little things that you never think about, eh?
You don't, no. Do you know how many people wished they'd had cover last year but didn't take it out?
I don't know numbers, but I'm 100% certain that anybody who had to make or anybody who had anything unexpected happen to them while they're on holiday, they'll be wishing that they had cover. So, but I don't know exact numbers. Okay. But I would imagine there's quite a lot.
Yeah. You mentioned about health and medical costs, but
Yeah.
aren't there medical companies out there, like NHS and other countries, that would cover us anyway?
Yeah, it's not always possible for like the British consulate to step in and help. And some countries do have an agreement with the UK, but it's only for basic treatment. So, like I mentioned, if repatriation is necessary, it's a significant cost. and it would need to be funded by the patient if they didn't have travel insurance. And an example is somebody who needed to fly home from, say, the Canary Islands. The cost is like a minimum of £15,000. So obviously, imagine if it was somebody going from Australia. So, yeah, they need travel insurance. You can't depend on just help from the foreign countries. It's not going to work.
That's a lot of money, isn't it?
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Not something everybody just has readily available.
No. But aren't all travel insurance policies the same?
No. I think like everything else in life, you get what you pay for. Our policies at Holiday Extras are grouped by sort of bronze, silver and gold. So the higher the premium should equal the better the cover and with less exclusions. So, yeah, you get what you pay for.
You mentioned exclusions. Why is there so much small print?
Well, I suppose the travel insurance is kind of regarded as one of the most complex types of insurance you can buy. Things that you're already aware of before you travel can affect the price and the cover. So this needs to be brought to the customer's attention. So even things, for example, as relatives at home, you know, if there's a chance that you may need to come home because of somebody being sick, these things need to be told and declared. It's so important that you read the small print on an insurance policy. Make sure that you know exactly what is covered and what is not. There are exceptions and there's limits in every policy. And I think if you've not read it and then you go to make a claim, it's not going to make an iota of difference if you call it out. They're going to have expected you to read it. So, yeah, it does look a little bit boring. It is all in small print, but I suppose that's because there's so much information they need to make you aware of.
So you said about exclusions. So I believe sometimes water skiing and banana boat rides can be excluded. Is that true?
Yeah, hazardous activities are generally excluded. So these are activities that you would usually require maybe some kind of training for, or usually in the UK they could be regulated, but overseas we have no control on how the activities are run, whether they're insured privately, etc. So obviously it's worth checking if you're going to go and do something, do they have their own insurance to cover you, etc. If not, it's always possible to pay an additional premium for some activities to be covered. They probably would still usually exclude third-party liability, and any additional premiums are usually only charged to the person who's going to participate, so to avoid penalising every traveller.
Gary Fitz here, every Monday, 10 o'clock.
Coming up, we've got Eric and Ernie.
Join me here on Seclo Sounds.
In your smile.
It's from 1975. Eric and Ernie were four.
Gary, it's not Eric and Ernie, it's Earl and Ernie, you know, the Cape Brothers, Union Man.
Oh, I see.
Gary Fitz here, every Monday, 10 o'clock.
Earl and Ernie.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. Still to come in the show, when you should be using a travel agent, why it makes sense to do so, and also a Caribbean island your neighbours probably haven't been to. One of my favourite places in the Caribbean, the British Virgin Islands. But at the moment, I'm speaking to Louise from Holiday Extras. We're talking about travel insurance. I was calling her on her mobile phone, so every now and again the audio gets a bit scratchy, so apologies for that. But there's some really useful information being shared. And of course, I've just taken a break, but I thought I'd take this break so we can come back on a bit of travel which probably affects all of you. And that's what happens if you've been drinking when you've been on holiday.
I saw once on telly that you might not be covered if you've been out drinking. Is that true?
Well, I think it's sort of in the press very often at the moment with people doing silly things with drink. So obviously the Financial Ombudsman has made rulings in the past. It's reasonable for insurers to expect travellers to drink more than they usually would when on holiday. However, I suppose if you're going to expose yourself to needless danger due to drinking, then there's a likelihood that the insurance is going to decline the claim. So I suppose, for example, if you're going to get really drunk and walk along the edge of your balcony on the 10th floor, you're not going to be covered. I think it's about common sense.
So I can still get a little bit squiffy then?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good.
Just don't go climbing on balconies and being silly.
No, I'll have trouble getting off the bench when I'm a little bit squiffy. I'm never going to be doing that. Isn't the claim paperwork designed to make the claim too much hassle?
No, and I think we believe that if the customer has a genuine claim, it should be an easy process. I think in the past the paperwork could have been maybe a little bit long-winded, but there again, I suppose from the claim writer's point of view, they've maybe had a lot of people that have tried to do claims that haven't really been real claims. So they've got to kind of sift through the good and the bad. On all our policy confirmations, we include a link to an online claim service, and our underwriter operates a teleclaim service to make things straightforward using a paperless system. So, you know, going forward, they are trying to make life easy for everybody.
Sometimes the excess can be per person claiming and not per claim. Is that fair?
Well, with most policies, you can be given the option to purchase an excess waiver. So that means you wouldn't have an excess. But if this isn't purchased, then, yeah, excesses may apply per person on certain things. It depends what you're claiming on. Like for us, it's capped in the event of cancellation to like a one family fee. But obviously not all policies are the same, and more often than not, they are per person. So I think that's just because obviously it could be just one person that's claiming, etc. But yes, but for us with cancellation, there is a capping on it to a one family fee to try and make it cheaper and easier.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
When trying to cut costs on travel insurance, some people don't mention previous ailments or medical treatment. How big a problem is this? Because you, as insurers, you can check their medical records, can't you, if a claim is made?
Yeah, it's super important that any medical conditions declared. So in the event of a customer needing treatment abroad, the insurer will check with the patient's GP about the medical history. This mainly, obviously, is to assist the treating doctor in the immediate care of the patient. But if a customer's failed to declare the condition, the claim will be assessed accordingly, but could be declined if the treatment is related to a condition and they've not informed the insurer about it. So it's super important, because you hate to be in a situation that you've not mentioned anything, you go to make a claim, and then they've found out that, you know, it was a pre-existing condition. You get nothing back. So it's super important.
Do many people have unrealistic expectations about what cover's given? They just go for the cheapest policy and think they're going to get what they want.
Yeah, I think most customers do tend to buy on price, and obviously it's the way of the world. But there's many stories in the press about what happens when you didn't have the cover you thought you had. You know, the press are quick to report on all the bad stuff. Many of the free policies or cheaper policies that are given away with things like bank accounts, credit cards, you know, don't get me wrong, some of them are perfect and are fine, but a lot of them don't cover you for everything that you need. It comes back to reading the small print and sort of knowing what you need to be covered for. They most certainly won't cover pre-existing conditions. They always need to be declared. But some of the bank account and credit card ones don't cover cancellation or repatriation. So it's about doing a bit of homework. It looks good at the beginning, a free policy, etc., but it could cost you a lot more in the long run. It's worth checking.
Yeah, I went to an animal sanctuary a couple of years ago, and my bank account insisted that my insurance covered me for repatriation if I got attacked by a lion or a leopard.
Really?
I kept pushing and said, "Oh no, you're not." But if I'd taken the first answer, I could have been in trouble. Yeah.
Really? Yeah, it's worth just double checking everything.
Yeah, use a proper company.
Yeah. Like holiday extras.
Yeah, like holiday extras. Egypt is in the news a lot at the moment. A lot of people want to cancel their holiday because they're worried about the trouble over there, but they can't because of the advice from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office.
Yeah.
But if somebody's nervous about how dangerous somewhere they perceive somewhere to be, why can't they just cancel?
Well, I think insurance as well goes off the advice of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. So, you know, if people could just be changing their minds and thinking they don't want to go somewhere, we could have a lot of people cancelling, and obviously that's a lot of claims then going through. So we take the advice of the Commonwealth Office. So if they advise against travel to a particular area, if there's civil or political unrest, then obviously we would go with that, and then that's fine. But if you're travelling against any advice, then a claim would be invalid. I think kind of the best advice is to check with the agent, the operator, the airline, who you've booked with, because in most cases they'll be able to offer an alternative.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. Later in the show, we'll be finding out about the British Virgin Islands, one of my favourite destinations in the world. But at the moment, we're coming to the end of my chat with Louise from Holiday Extras. We're talking travel insurance, And of course, the travel insurers would like you to take some precautions as well to ensure that you don't have to make any claims. And we're now going to be talking about that and seeing if it's clearly marked in the small print.
Also, on a less cheerful note, robbery prevention should be carried out by the traveller. They're expected to take precautions about looking after their personal belongings, such as not leaving the stuff in a car unattended. How clear is this made in the paperwork that they should take reasonable steps?
Right, yeah, this is clearly stated in our policy wording, but I think it's just a case of being sensible and behaving like you would in the UK. So if you're going to an unfamiliar area, you'd be unlikely to leave your belongings unattended, and also really valuable items should be left at home, or you cover them separately on your contents insurance anyway if they're of high value. So it's just about common sense with that. But it is stated in the policy wording, it mentions it, it tells you what you are and what you aren't covered for. So again, it comes down to making sure that you do read it. As boring as the blurb looks, it's essential you read it.
Do read it, right.
Yeah.
Not every policy covers financial failure of a travel company. With more and more people booking travel themselves, DIY, and from various sources, is there an insurance policy that would protect somebody in the same way a package holiday would?
Yeah, we have what's called end supplier failure included in our standard policies. So basically, we will pay up to the amount shown in the summary of cover in total for costs you incur as a result of the airline or any unbonded elements of the booking failing. So, yeah, where, the travel agents who provide the package holidays provide a cover if their companies fail, you've got this end supplier failure to cover for anything that you've packaged up yourself.
I should check that then, because I'm always packaging my own.
Oh, really? So, yeah, really useful.
What's an act of God, and is it fair that an atheist can't claim
Well,
it's an act of God?
To be honest with you, the phrase act of God has now been phased out.
Okay.
Mainly because of that reason. It wasn't really kind of politically correct, I suppose. So these days, something like that is described as a natural catastrophe or disaster, to kind of get around it.
Okay, natural. Okay, I'll remember that one next time.
Yeah.
The thing is, I can spell God, I can't spell natural. Never mind. What should people look out for when buying travel insurance? Do you have any top tips?
Yeah, okay, so there's a few things. I think one of the main things that people don't realise is that make sure that the cancellation cover on the policy covers the amount of the holiday cost. If your holiday was £500 and your cancellation covers only £200, you'll only get the £200 back. So, for example, you must make sure that it covers a higher amount. Also, like we've mentioned, if there's pre-existing medical conditions, make sure you look out for a policy that's designed for this. Holiday Extras do one that's called Latitude, and it's specifically for pre-existing medical conditions. It's a good example. And then finally, if you do more than one holiday a year, purchase annual multi-trip policies. They represent excellent value for money.
Yeah, that's what I should have done. I wasn't expecting to go around so quickly. But never mind.
Yeah, I think that's what happens. People don't really, go off your budget. You think you can only do one holiday a year, but then, if you're fortunate enough to have a few more, you'll wish you'd got an annual one and you'd have saved money on your insurance. Things are roundabout.
Yep, I'll get an annual insurance cover now and I won't go away again for 2 years.
Yeah. The thing is, I do find that the annual policies are pretty good value, actually. If you're doing Europe, obviously if you're going to look at worldwide ones as well, then they're a little bit more expensive, but European annual ones are quite competitive now. So.
How does Holiday Extras cover benefit their clients?
Right, well, all Holiday Extras products are specially designed to be fit for purpose. We kind of, big ourselves up on the fact that we offer bespoke policies, which we believe cover all customers' needs. So, for example, we have a policy that's just for coach holidays. It has no age loadings, and obviously for medical screening, there is none for the UK holidays. We also offer a cruise policy, which provides better levels of cover, higher cancellation limits, and there's loads of added benefits such as missed port departure. So this means that we'll pay up to a certain amount to ensure you can join the cruise at the next port of departure. If you've missed the first one due to bad weather, public transport not running on time, or your vehicle breaking down. We also offer cabin confinement. So you're poorly, your doctor confines you to a cabin. It's approximately £25 a day that we'll pay. And finally, things like if you've pre-booked excursions on your cruise and you've missed an excursion due to illness, or the ship can't stop there due to bad weather, there's also a payment for that. And then lastly, obviously I've mentioned before, is Latitude, which is designed, priced for people with medical conditions. We cover most conditions and cover the age of 89. So we kind of feel we've covered all areas, as well as just doing your bog standard policy, your winter sport, etc. So yeah, and your annual.
Right. How can the listeners find out to get the... Sorry, start that again. How can the listeners get your cover?
Okay, so you can visit any one of the appointed representatives, which are travel agents, or they can visit our website, which is www.holidayextras.com. Or you can find out more by calling me. And my number's 0754 561. I forgot my number. I can't believe the very last bit and I forget the number. What is my number? I've read it wrong, that's why. It's 07545 610 876.
Yep, 07545 610 876.
Yeah.
Yep. Or www.holidayextras.com.
Yeah.
This is Seclo Sounds. Join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. for 1 hour in the company of Harry and Edna on the wireless, exploring all aspects of the vintage scene and playing tip-top gramophone tunes. Harry and Edna on the wireless, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on seclosounds.org. Jolly good.
My name's Teresa Kelleher. Join me on Seclo Sounds every Wednesday at 8 p.m. for my show Inspired by Jazz. Each week I'll take you on a journey as I feature the music, the maestros and the melodies. That's Inspired by Jazz with me, Teresa, every Wednesday at 8 p.m. on Seclo Sounds.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. I used to be a travel agent. I'm not now, but I used to be. When you're a travel agent, you get to go on some great free trips, which are known as FAM trips or familiarity trips. It's where tour companies or tourist boards take you over, show you all the hotels, so you can get a good feel about what the place has to offer your clients. It sounds like it's ideal, but it is actually a lot of hard work, honest. You bust around, you can see 3 or 4, maybe 5 hotels in one day. And then when you get to the evening, you have a quick chance to wash and clean yourself up, then you're out again having a free meal. Okay, so it is quite a jolly. One of the best ones I've ever had was when I went to the British Virgin Islands. It was good for 3 reasons, really. The first one, which unusually for a fam trip, I was able to take my wife. All I had to do was pay for her airfare. Second good reason, it wasn't a traditional fam trip. We was left on our own. We were put up in 2 hotels and 2 different islands. And all we had was a half-hour tour of the main island, and that was it. So it was really a free holiday for me and a cheap holiday for my wife because we just had to pay for the airfare. But that's not why it's one of my favourite trips. I stayed at a hotel called Byres Creek, which is the first one out of the 2 we stayed in. And this place is just excellent. It is superb. And completely and utterly out of my price range for my next holiday, which is a shame because I'd like to go back there. You're at one side, it's on a small island called Virgin Gorda. You've got the Atlantic Ocean on one side, and our room had a picture window where the whole wall was just glass and you could see the Atlantic coming. There was a little quiet bay where you could just sit and chill and relax, and then on the other side you could see the Caribbean and the other Virgin Islands. And also on a clear day you could see Richard Branson's island as well. And if we wanted to, we could hire a boat and go over to the island, because although it's a private island, in the British Virgin Islands the beaches aren't private. So providing you can get there, you can party on the beach. But anyway, It's a great place, and I need to get an expert to talk to you about it. So I spoke to Ginny from the Virgin Islands Tourist Board, and she's now going to share with us information on why we should visit British Virgin Islands.
What's it like compared to the other Caribbean islands?
I think that the difference is that we're made up, instead of being one island, we're made up of 60 islands, very small though, and most of them uninhabited. And while that makes it sound like a massive destination, actually it isn't. It takes 2 hours to go from one end of the destination to the other through all the islands. So that would be your longest sail, if you like, through them. Very unspoilt. We have no franchises. We don't have people trying to braid your hair or, sell you their market wares. We have very little crime because we have no unemployment.
Oh, how do you do that?
Because we have more tourism jobs than we actually have BV Islanders, we have to bring people in on work permits into the British Virgin Islands.
Okay.
They come in on a bond, which is paid to immigration, and if they were to mess about at all, that bond would be used to send them back out. As when you don't have unemployment and people aren't hungry and we don't have poverty, you don't get crime. And when people don't feel threatened for their life or worried about feeding their families,
I have been
it's an easier way to live,
I did spend a week there, and it is very laid back, and it was very nice. It kind of reminded me, I know it sounds sad, it reminded me of the Lake District, except that the lakes were a lot bigger, because you had so many sort of hills coming out of the sea.
Except for Anegada, which is totally flat. Did you go to Anegada?
I didn't know.
Oh, okay. Anegada is a 16-mile coral island, and it's completely flat, and it's just basically beaches all the way round, and nothing to do there except relax and snorkel, basically, and eat lobster.
Okay.
That's totally different to the rest of the islands.
I'll have to do that one next time.
Yes.
You're known as Nature's Little Secrets. Why is that?
Because we are a little bit less well known. There's no direct flights into us, and we do think that we're a treasure and that we're a gem because we are so unspoilt, and it's like the old Caribbean. But actually, it's my job to make it less a secret. So hopefully, we will become less of one over the next couple of years.
Yep.
Just that many people don't, other than they've heard about Necker Island being in the British Virgin Islands, a lot of people haven't really travelled that far or got to know us yet.
You mentioned there's no direct flights. How do you get there?
So you fly from London from Gatwick to Antigua, and then from Antigua you either take a Liat flight in to Tortola, and then from Tortola to get out to all the hotels. Unless you're actually staying on Tortola, you would take a boat. All the hotels have their own boats that pick up the guests and take them back to the hotels.
Yeah, that's what happened when we went to Virgin Gorda.
Where were you staying on Virgin Gorda?
Byres Creek.
Byres Creek, yeah, lovely.
It's my favourite hotel in the whole world.
I used to be the director of sales and marketing there, actually.
Oh, did you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
great place.
And you left it? I don't understand.
I now have the best of both worlds.
We know how to get there, and Antigua's roughly 8 to 9 hours, isn't it?
Yes.
2 hours to get around.
Yes.
But when the pirates were around, is it true that it was really a pirate hideaway a couple of 100 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. And all of the islands have got different stories about it, like pirate stories and why they got their names and that sort of thing.
So it wasn't a friendly place a couple of 100 years ago, then it was a little bit keep away?
I'm sure that some people were friendly. I'm not sure that the pirates were, but the indigenous people were.
Oh, right. So there is indigenous people there, I didn't realise that.
Yeah, absolutely. With the Arawaks and the Caribs.
Oh, okay.
Were the first people that lived there.
The weather there, what's it like?
Lovely pretty much all the year round. Because the islands are really small, there's always a breeze.
Yep.
So while the weather is up in the 80s, as opposed to being on one big island where once you get sort of central on the island, it gets really hot. Because we're small, and as you've seen for yourself, we're like mountainous islands.
Yep.
There's always the trade winds. So it's always really breezy, except for sort of probably late August, September, October, which is sort of when we have the least tourists coming in anyway, because for the Caribbean, obviously, that's the height of like hurricane season.
Yeah.
And actually for us, that's a time when a lot of the hotels close, and then they'll refurbish for the new season. And a lot of the people who are with us on work permits will at that point take their vacation from work and go home and see their families from the islands that they come from, whether, Guyana, St. Lucia, Dominican Republic, wherever.
Yeah, I remember Boris Creek was closing down not long after we...
Boris Creek closes every year and refurbishes because, the rooms are on that Atlantic side, so they get a bit of a pounding. So the thing about sea air, while it's lovely to breathe it in, it corrodes everything and, can be really tough on you. So all the hotels need to do refurbishment constantly, actually, throughout the year on that stuff. But then in the summer, they tend to do, like, a really big refurbishment and, redo all the linens and things.
You mentioned the hurricane season. Do you ever get hit regularly?
All the Caribbean's got hurricanes coming through. Mostly they just they go out into the Atlantic or become tropical storms. I lived out there for 15 years, and I think there were only 3 in the whole time I was there, so they are rare.
So that's good.
And if there are, anyway, any guests in the hotels and things, you track them coming across the Atlantic and you get people out.
Yep. I had somebody from the Hurricane Centre in Miami on my show a couple of weeks ago and explaining it,
Okay, yeah, you can track them from a long way off.
You can contact us or just keep up to date with travel news at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show.
This is Seclo Sounds, your community radio station. If you'd like to volunteer some of your time and skills with Seclo Sounds, send an email to volunteers@seclosounds.org and let us know how you would like to be involved. MK Flyers Online, the fast and simple way to find any kind of business or service locally. Find us at mkflyersonline.co.uk or download the MK Flyers mobile app from your app store. MK Flyers Online proudly supports Seclo Sounds, community radio for Milton Keynes.
The John Guinn Travel Show. Checking it out before you check in on seclosounds.org. Still to come on the show, Nick, who's a travel agent. He's going to explain to us why we still need them. But at the moment, I'm speaking to Ginny from the British Virgin Island, or BVI, tourist office in London. We're finding out why we should visit there. It's one of my favourite places in the world. And we're just going to cover a few of the basics at the moment.
What's the official language there?
English.
English. That's handy.
Yeah, and the money is American.
Oh, so it's...
US dollar.
US dollars. Any particular reason for the US dollars, or is it just easier?
We're just so close to America.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to have a pound. Although most of the Caribbean, has Eastern Caribbean currency.
Yeah.
But that's actually another reason that people want to come and work in the British Virgin Islands, like from the other islands, because US dollar is worth about 8 times more than Eastern Caribbean currency.
Okay, so take dollars. Is there any compulsory vaccinations to take when you go over?
No,
None at all?
none. We haven't got anything horrible.
Oh, good. What about entry requirements for a UK passport holder?
No.
No, just pitch up.
Just turn up, yep. You do need to have 6 months in your passport, though, when you're travelling to the Caribbean.
Okay, 6 months.
Mm.
And if you want to get married?
Very easy. Either through any of the hotels, they all have their own wedding coordinators.
Yep.
That will sort out weddings for you, and you just need to live there for 24 hours. If you've been married before or anything like that, you need to have, or if you've been married and lost a partner, you need to have like the death certificate or your decree absolute. Other than that, you just rock up with your passports and pay a fee of less than a couple of $100 for the whole thing, and can be married 24 hours later.
It's pretty quick then.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure people stay longer than that, though.
Well, people tend to get married at the beginning, and then they stay on and have their honeymoon as their holiday. And they can either come and bring their families with them and their friends, or they can just, easily find witnesses in the hotels. And if people aren't staying in the hotels, if they're on a boat or if they're just independently self-catering, then at the tourist board, then we can help them with finding a wedding coordinator on island to help them with all the paperwork.
So if they want to do it themselves, they just contact you and it's all sorted.
If they can contact us for anything, we can help them with anything. That's what we're here for.
So I guess it's not all luxury hotels then. There is a mix of accommodation.
No, and it's actually, sort of historically people think of the British Virgin Islands as being really expensive and exclusive. And actually the truth is that we're exclusive, but actually there's lots of properties as well that aren't that expensive. And we have a selection of properties which we call the jewels, which are local inns and villas and small hotels all locally owned and very inexpensive, and you can stay there for as little as £70 a night.
That's pretty cheap. A lot cheaper than Barras Creek.
Yes, that's true.
What are the beaches like there?
Beautiful. They are all white sand beaches, and hardly ever, I mean, they're never crowded. Maybe at the baths, which is our biggest tourist attraction, you might find a group of people, but generally they're very, very quiet.
I'm pretty sure I remember that there's no such thing as a private beach.
No.
So you could, if you wanted to, go over to Necker Island and stand on the beach?
Well, you could, except that Necker Island is surrounded by coral. So if you've got a boat or if you chartered a boat, you're not allowed to take it over there because there's too much coral. Really, only the local boat drivers can find their way through the coral to get there.
I'm glad I didn't try that now then. I
Yeah.
would have got in trouble. Speaking of boats, when I was there I saw loads of them. Do you get more UK visitors chartering yachts than those who stay on land?
Yes, we have more guests everywhere chartering boats than stay on land because we have more berths on boats than we have beds in hotels.
Do people just go around your islands or do they go further afield?
No, not really. They tend to just stay with... We're very different to the US Virgin Islands. So they do tend to stay in the British Virgin Islands when they're sailing with us. Also, British nationals cannot go into the US Virgin Islands on a private boat. So the only way that they could enter into the US by boat would be on a public ferry. So that if they were chartering on a private boat, they wouldn't be able to sail over there anyway from the UK. And we have, as I said, 60 islands, and you're never more than 2 hours sailing from your local, the nearest anchorage. You could stay 2 weeks there and still not get to see all of our islands. So why would you leave?
Why would you? That solves my next question then. It's not easy just to pop over to the US Virgin Islands then?
It is if you take a public ferry.
But not if you're a charter yacht?
No, you can't from the UK.
Very welcoming, isn't it?
What, the US?
Yeah, you can't mention that, sorry.
That's actually not true, because if they have a US visa in their passport, then they can take a private boat in. But most British people don't have a US visa these days, because they just have the ESTA.
Yeah.
Yeah, for flying in.
Okay, so need a visa.
But it's really different anyway, the US Virgin Islands. It's a totally different, it's very busy, lots of cruise ships, lots of shops, franchises. It's a whole totally different feel. So most people that are coming to holiday in the British Virgin Islands are probably sort of wanting to escape that rather than go to it on holiday.
Yeah. I always mention food when I talk to people about destinations. It's because I'm a vegan and I'm just missing all the stuff I used to eat.
Right.
Is there a national dish to the Virgin Islands?
The thing we're most famous for is our fish with mayonnaise sauce, which is obviously no good to you being a vegan.
No.
But then we also have lovely local ground provisions, like plantain and callaloo and things like that, which you can get in all of the islands. But
yeah, we stayed at the Sugar Mill as well as the Barras Creek, and
Okay.
I think that had one of the best restaurants in the Caribbean, I seem to remember at the time.
yeah, they've got a lot of awards actually.
Yeah. So do you have many top-notch restaurants?
We do. Yep, absolutely. We've got a brand new one opened on Virgin Gorda called Coco Maya. Then we also have on Tortola, since you were there probably, Sugar Mill is still there and serving excellent food. Obviously Barras Creek, as you know, is renowned for its food. But we've got Coco Maya on Virgin Gorda, and we've got the Dove and Brandywine Bay on Tortola, which are also really famous for outstanding food.
Do you have a favourite place when you're around?
A favourite place to eat?
Yeah.
Where's my favourite place to eat? I really like to eat local food when I'm there, so I tend to be round with friends. But if I'm out for local foods, there's a supermarket in Tortola called Bobby's, and I like to go in there and for like $6 get a takeaway of lots of different choices. There's also a wonderful little local restaurant on Virgin Gorda called Sugar Apple, and the food there is incredible, but you have to get there early at lunchtime or it's all sold out. And then if I'm really pushing the boat out and want to have a fabulous, expensive night out, I would do the Monday night seafood buffet at Little Dix Bay.
So that's all your secrets out now?
Yeah, but you don't eat anything all day because it is incredible.
That'd be no good for me. I can't go a couple of hours without having a little chew on something.
Happy Radio.
Hi, this is Russell Hearn. Join me Fridays at 12 for a little pick-me-up. I'll be playing the music that stirs those warm memories and takes you to a special time and place. And Millie's here with her choice of fun apps for your phone too. So for a lighter look at life and some songs you'll never forget, tune in to seclosounds.org for some happy radio.
You can contact us or just keep up to date with travel news at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. Should we still use a travel agent? Well, we're going to find out shortly when I speak to Nick, who's going to explain whether there's still a role in travel for travel agents. But now I'm still speaking to Ginny, and we're going to finish off our conversation about visiting the BVI. As I may have mentioned once or twice during the show, it's one of my favourite places in the world.
So we've covered the food and the boats. What else should a tourist do when they're out there?
We'll go to the baths. Everybody comes to the baths. They're incredible. These massive boulders, taller than buildings. Did you do that when you were there?
I didn't, no.
Okay, these huge, gigantic boulders where the sun comes through the top and the ocean comes through at the bottom, hence the reason they're called the baths, because it makes these little pools of water, and they are incredible and something not to be missed. And that is the only place that you would ever sort of draw a crowd, because pretty much everyone that goes to BVI makes sure that they go to the baths.
Yep.
But there's also some beaches that people don't even go to that I love, like Spring Bay on Virgin Gorda, which is gorgeous and also has many of these boulders. Little hideaway places, little beaches in the North Sound, where you can just fit two people and literally just take like a little dinghy and go and, you know, hang out there and just be there by yourselves for the day. Gorda Peak on Virgin Gorda, absolutely incredible. You climb to the top of that and you can look down over the whole of the North Sound, out to Necker Island as far as Anegada.
I got halfway.
Oh, did you?
It's too hot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so beautiful. It's well worth the hike. There's also Anegada is amazing. Most people don't get to go out there, but I would say to anybody staying in a hotel in Virgin Gorda, jump on a day trip and go there, because it's absolutely beautiful.
Is there any nightlife to do as well?
Nightlife, in Spanish Town in Virgin Gorda, you'll find things going on. There's the Rock Cafe and Sam's Piano Bar. That goes on until quite late. And then over on Tortola, obviously being the capital island, you can find things going on in Road Town late at night. But most of the hotels, close down relatively early. People tend to get up early in the Caribbean and get out and do things. But the Bitter End Yacht Club in North Sound has lots of fun things going on. They have music 3 nights a week. They have a Monday night mash-up with a disco, and then they have bands on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And Leverick Bay on Virgin Gorda has, on a Friday night, a fantastic barbecue and local band playing, and they have the stilt walkers, what we call the Moko Jumbies, dancing. And also every full moon at Trellis Bay we have a fantastic party which is celebrated by locals and tourists down on Trellis Bay at Beef Island, Tortola. And they have the Moko Jumbies there, and they have a big fireball in the water that they set light to, and yeah, that's fun.
So time it for the right moon.
Yes.
When I was there was loads of bunting out. I think that was Emancipation Day or something.
Okay, so we have 2 carnivals actually. Yep. We have our main one, which is next week in Tortola, which is the first Monday in August, Tuesday and Wednesday. So it's a 3-day national holiday, and there'll be carnival all next week in Tortola. And then on Virgin Gorda we have a smaller one, which is at Easter, which is just a 1 day on the Monday.
What sort of things go on at these places? These things?
Dancing, bands playing, lots of different local food and drinks to try. And the great thing about, because we are, practically crime-free and it's such a safe place, it's wonderful because tourists are welcome to join in, and they never would feel threatened. They'd be welcomed by the locals and get to really enjoy a proper Caribbean festival.
Is there any dressing up involved?
If they want to.
Yeah?
Yep.
What should I wear if I wanted to join him?
As little as possible and lots of feathers.
Okay, loads of feathers. How can the listeners find out more about the islands?
The best thing really is to call us here in the BVI Tourist Board in London. And there's myself and Lorna and Mia, and we've all lived out there for many years. We know it really well. We can help them put an itinerary together or listen to what it is that they what they're looking for, what their likes and dislikes are, and recommend where we think are the best places for them to visit or stay within their price range.
I can just give your number out, please.
0207 355 9585.
Okay. Do you have a website as well?
We do. It's bvitourism.co.uk.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. Seclo Sounds exists to bring people and communities together to celebrate all that's best about the city of Milton Keynes. We produce a variety of music and speech programmes, and you've heard some of the promos in this show, and we're produced by local people and run by over 60 volunteers. However, there's always room for more, so if you have a programme idea or a skill that you want to offer, please send us an email to volunteers@seclosounds.org. And of course, as we're all volunteers, we can't operate without the help from our partners, and one such partner is Interaction. Seclo Sounds is based at the old rectory, which is the home of Interaction MK. They've been bringing arts to life in Milton Keynes for over 35 years. They use the arts to improve the life chances of disabled people and others in challenging circumstances through shared created activity. Their programs help participants to develop creative, personal and social skills. To find out more, please visit them at www.interactionmk.org.uk. You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. There's no travel news section on this week's show. All the travel news that happened in the last week paled in insignificance compared to MH17. I don't have enough information to talk about MH17. By the time this show goes out, it goes out and then it's repeated. So it could be well out of date. So rather than talk about it, I'm just going to mention it now as the reason why I'm not having travel news on this week's show. But hopefully, over the next few weeks, we'll find out exactly what happened to the plane, and then perhaps I'll be able to cover it on a show because all the information will be out there and we can bring it up. So no travel news, but there will be travel news on the next show. Travel agents, do you use them? Perhaps most of you don't. I've done market research at Luton Airport and an awful lot of people don't use travel agents anymore. So is there a role to them? Should they still be there? Are they needed? Needed as apart from just going in there to get a brochure to find out what you've booked online. I needed to ask a travel agent and a good one to find out, so I spoke to Nick, who's got a travel agent in South London. Nick is well respected in the travel press and he's used quite a few times to talk about various topics, so there couldn't be a better person to talk to about this. So he's now going to tell us whether there's still a role in the travel world for a travel agent.
Okay, Nick, can you just briefly explain who you are and what you do, please?
Travel Designers are an independent travel company based in South London. We have a high street shop and also we attend lots of consumer events across the year, and we also have a website. So we're there to provide a full service travel service to our clients.
Okay, you mentioned you've got a high street shop. Isn't high street travel agencies dead now?
Not all the time. I think you have to use it in combination with other distribution methods. We do have a website. That's our window on the world. However, we do prefer clients to speak to us. They will get a better service than just tapping away. There's lots of information we've gathered over the years that you can't put on a website. So it's a combination of using all the different methods that we believe allows us to provide an excellent service to our clients.
Okay, you said about providing a service and information. Actually, just at the end of last week, I mystery shopped one of the local Thomas Cook shops. I went in there with a slightly awkward request, and all I got was a brochure and told to come back. Isn't that what travel agents do now? They just say, go and find it and then come back, we'll book it.
Not necessarily so, and I think you would find the independent sector may be slightly different from the multiple chains. In the independent sector, we're not told who to sell because we've got targets, etc. So I think the independent sector is freer to go out and do that research for you because we haven't got like a regional manager down our back saying, have you sold that, have you sold that, have you sold car parking? So I think depending on the travel agent, you will see a different service. and we are very different. Some of the chains are more like holiday shops, so it is give us a code, we'll book it. Well, I think you would generally find if you mystery shops and independent, they would go away and do the research for you and come back with some better information for you, I would hope.
Okay, you mentioned independent a few times. Can you just explain what an independent is, please, just in case anybody doesn't know?
Yeah, sure. Independent means we're not owned by any of the big holiday companies such as Virgin, Kioni, Thomas Cook, Chewy. So we're free to go and book your holiday with many other different tour operators. People sometimes dynamically package it. So we're not tied. So we can look at all the different ones and also some of the smaller tour operators as well.
Dynamically packaged, that means you listen to the customer's request and then make it happen?
If it's legally possible to do it, because we do have to work within a legal framework set down by the Civil Aviation Authority, yes, we can.
You can. There's been a lot of companies gone bust over the few years. Are you an ABTA member? Is the client's money safe if they use you?
We're not an ABTA member, but we're a member of one of the consortiums, Global Travel Group, so all clients' monies are paid into that. It's fully financially protected. We, as an agent, only book with ATOL-protected tour operators, so again, there is protection through that. And we issue the new ATOL certificate as soon as anybody has booked. So for clients, ABTA isn't everything. You're better off looking for the ATOL logo. And also, independents can be members of various different consortiums. And again, they usually provide financial protection as well.
So it sounds like you're using a trust account to keep the customer's money safe.
Yeah, Global have a separate account. All the clients' monies are safe. In the event of the tour operator's failure or our failure, clients will either get their holiday or their money back.
Okay, so the money's going to the holiday. It's not going for anything else. It's not paying wages or rates. It's just going purely towards their holiday, and it's really safe.
Yeah, purely towards their holiday. They know their money's safe. They know their holiday's safe. And as I say, if worst case scenario, in the event of failure, they will get their money back.
Okay, that's good. A lot of people aren't aware of trust accounts. I spoke to somebody from the BBC about a month or so ago, and they'd never heard of it. They just thought everybody had to use ABTA.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's all a bit woolly. It's all a little bit confusing. The industry could do more to educate the consumer. I'll certainly say that. And I think the media, through programs such as Holiday Hit Squad, etc., they just make things look a lot worse, and they don't actually explain to the client what the agent should be doing. Obviously, by going through an agent that's bonded through one of the recognised bodies, you know your money's safe. If you're going onto some website or booking with the hotel direct in whatever country, you are really limiting your financial protection. Okay. And also different things, if, I don't know, the hotel has building work, if we've booked it, we've got a legal obligation to tell you. If you've booked it with the hotel direct, they have no legal obligation to tell you. And that's when we see things going wrong.
Okay, so you're there for the reassurance and to protect their money and to make sure it all goes smoothly. I guess that you're a point of call as well. If they book direct to a hotel in Crete, they have to ring Crete. If they have a problem, they come back.
Yes, exactly. Well, we're there for them. We provide a 24-hour emergency helpline. We hope nobody ever has to use that, but it's there. If something goes wrong, we're there. We're there to argue the case for the client if they get there and there's not the right room available for them. These things happen very, very rarely. But it's nice to have that assurance. And people are under the misinterpretation that we charge a fortune for this. We don't. I mean, only yesterday I had a client who was piecing his honeymoon together all around Thailand, going off to all different websites, getting different rates for different rooms. We came up with exactly the same as what he was doing, and we were about £100 cheaper, but he had his full financial protection. We were booking his restaurants for him as a part of our concierge service. You'd never get that from a website. So altogether, the client's now had a much better experience and at a cheaper cost with full financial protection and has our backing all the way from booking to all the way to when the client returns back to the UK.
Okay, that was going to be my next point. I was going to say it's more expensive to use an agent, but you just shown that it's not always the case.
I'm not saying it's always cheaper to use an agent. In our experience, the majority of cases it is. If they are a little bit more expensive, I think the extra value that we provide makes it worth it. And for the reassurance, as a friend of mine would say, if you were getting divorced, you wouldn't pick the cheapest divorce lawyer. So sometimes picking the cheapest way of booking may not necessarily be the best. It's also about providing value as well.
I might have to pinch that bit, the divorce lawyer bit. Okay. We've discussed about travel agents who just give you the brochure and you've gone about, you go in more detail and you actually listen. How would one of the listeners spot a good travel agent?
I am a little bit biased here. I would say probably independents are better. However, I have met some great people who work in the chain shops as well. I think if they sit down, they listen, they should be able to understand what you're talking about. Personally, we get emails all the time from clients just asking things. We prefer to speak to people. We think the more information the client gives us, the better service the client will get back from us. So it's about sitting down, talking, understanding what the client wants, and coming back with a couple of different options for people. It's about matching the right person to the right hotel with the right tour operator. If we think the client's going wrong, we'll politely tell them. At the end of the day, it's their holiday. They have to make a decision. But it's also our job to come up with some alternatives that we feel that make the client slightly better than what they thought about.
It's okay, so they need to look for somebody who shows all the signs of listening. If they don't listen, just get up and walk away.
But personally, I would. A holiday should be about an experience from the start to the end. It's not about just flicking a brochure page saying, give me that code, I want that on that day. Personally, I think travel is a lot more than that these days. It's about recommending restaurants, different things you can go and see and do. Perhaps coming up with an alternative hotel that the client originally walked in with, advising about the weather. These days, money's tight. People want to enjoy their holiday. It's relaxation time. It's our job to make the best possible use of that money and that time, so the client keeps on coming back to you.
Okay, great, thank you. You mentioned your website. Would you like to give the listeners your web address?
Yep. www.traveldesigners.co.uk. But do remember to give us a call because you will get a better service.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nick. Thanks a lot.
No problem.
It's been very useful. Thank you very much.
No problems.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. Well, that's the end of this week's show. Cover a lot of information. Travel insurance. Travel insurance is very important. Make sure you get some. Make sure you don't get it until you've read the small print to make sure you're covered. British Virgin Islands, please do visit this group of islands. It's a wonderful place to visit. And also, we found out that there is roles for travel agents. Travel agents can do so much more than what a travel brochure can do or a website. They can use their information, their knowledge that perhaps was built up from going on a fam trip, such as the one I went on to, the BVI. Next week, what am I going to cover? I'm not too sure yet. It'll be a nice surprise for all of us. If you have any suggestions for the show, you can let me know at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. Any destinations you want covered, any part of travel you want investigated, let me know. Put a message on that Facebook page and I will do my best to get it sorted for you. If you have any comments on this week's show, again, facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. And hopefully you can join me next time on the John Guinn Travel Show on setclosesounds.org, where each week I'll be checking it out before you check in.
MK Pulse proudly sponsors Seclo Sounds. MK Pulse is Milton Keynes' local magazine, bringing helpful information on food, health, fashion, money, travel, culture, and much more to 66,000 readers every month. Plus news, views, and what's on from around the city. If it's happening in Milton Keynes, it's in MK Pulse, and it's available online at www.mkpulse.co.uk. MK Pulse and Seclo Sounds, the heart and soul of the city.